we have this idea, okay, I can take a drug and it will fix my problems, but it won't. It will create more problems. So it's what can you do over time with consistency, with focus, with discipline. I think that's really, really important. And with plant medicines, people expect that to heal all their problems. And again, it's one of those things. It might do something for a short while, and then
Hello and welcome to How We Are Healing, the podcast where real people share vulnerable stories and life learned lessons. I'm Tristan, friendly yoga teacher, and your host through the darkness towards healing, one conversation at a time. And now, on to the episode. Da, 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 da. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I am Tristan, and we're here to talk about how we are healing. With me is Bradley Burns, mind transformation specialist. Bradley, thank you and welcome to the podcast.
yeah, thank you for having me. To be here.
Yeah, it's great. So, what led you towards healing?
Well, I grew up with, my mum was into all kinds of different sort of spiritualities. And I had images of the Buddha, I had images of Shiva, then we grew up with Catholicism, so I had these Catholic things. I was really exposed to kind of meditation. I was exposed to, she did Reiki and crystal healing, and I was exposed to kind of these, I don't know, unorthodox modalities. And so they were in my awareness. And I was always interested in it. I started meditating when I was a teenager. And then when I was around 18, 19, I started becoming a little bit obsessed with these things. I thought, well, maybe there's something to this. And I would look deeper and I'd look deeper. And I realized that I was actually really not at peace. I was really anxious in a lot of ways. And when I reached 21, I was trying as many things as I could to try and find peace. And I was exploring these different spiritual practices, esoteric spiritual practices, and hypnotherapy. I started practicing hypnotherapy at this time. I started learning about hypnotherapy at this time. And I went a bit overboard and I did so much of this stuff. And kind of at the time, I assumed that all of these traditions were about being at peace. And I now realize that they are way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got way more than I bargained for. I started having very, very strange experiences, out of body experiences, energetic experiences. And I had like intense bliss, intense gratitude, and then panic attacks. It was like crazy. And after the panic attack, I thought, this isn't good. I need to heal myself. I need to resolve this. So that began a very long and continuing journey.
Wow, that's super interesting. And so you mentioned that your mom was into a bunch of different esoteric modalities.
Yeah.
Did that come about from, like, where did you think that came from? Just her own kind of lived experience? Or did she grow up in a household that had esoteric as well from a young age?
Actually, I grew up with her and her parents, so they definitely weren't into that kind of thing. I'm not really sure when it happened for her or how it happened. I've never asked her, and that's something that I should ask her about.
Oh, cool. Okay. And so for you, it was like from birth until you said around 21 was when there were more intense experiences. Is that right?
Yeah, I think my mum started getting into this stuff when I was like 11, 12, something like that. And then, yeah, it was at 21 when the reality of what these kind of traditions and practices were kind of, like alluding to. I kind of thought, yeah, not really. And then it hit me that this is real. This stuff is real.
Right. Would you say that those experiences were like a rock bottom moment, like kind of crisis or crises?
That was definitely my first crisis.
First in a string.
Yes, because then I really didn't know what had happened. I started having these out of body type experiences, and I started having very strange internal phenomena happening. I've really got to know what the unconscious mind is like and then navigate the subconscious mind. I was training in hypnotherapy at that time, so that it kind of helped with that. Uh, but then there were more that happened.
Mhm.
And one that springs to mind is I fell in love with a girl when I was in India,
Mhm.
and
As you do.
as you do,
As you
and
do.
our first date was at the Taj Mahal, and it was all very wonderful, and it was something I was asking for, like this. I was into the manifesting everything, and I was manifesting her, and she showed up, and she was perfect, and she matched everything that I was writing about and wishing for, and we're in India, so it's colorful, it's magical, it's spiritual. Everything is like bang bang.
A feast for the senses.
Yeah.
It is. Every sense you have, right? Taste, touch, smell. It's just like
Mhm.
very cool.
I remember asking her to marry me when I was in England with her, and
How long were you together at this point?
not very long, like 6 months. It was a very whirlwind type experience.
I don't know, 6 months is like I've heard of
Yeah,
I've heard of shorter courtships.
yeah. Several days.
Yeah.
But one day I did. Um, and she said yes, and it was a very beautiful moment. And she went to Canada to work, and then we broke up.
Mm.
And
And you were living apart at
we
the
were
time?
living apart. And this was a really big thing for me because one, I realized that one, no matter what dream you have, that dream will end at some time. And another thing I realized was that whatever you think you want, might not actually be the same when as you imagine it to be when you receive it. And then I realized that I needed to, get my shit together in a practical sense because I was so destroyed by this situation. That was a really pivotal kind of rock bottom moment in my life, I think.
It just like to me it sounds like the manifestor's manifesto because that's exactly it. Like you manifest something, you've done the work of bringing about or thinking about what it is you want, and then the steps of manifesting, right? You visualize and you write it down and you feel and you et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And you're right. Then you get it and you're like, oh, I forgot to add this, right? Or like, oh, I forgot to clarify this way, whatever it is. So what do you think the lesson was there? Was it around attachment?
Yeah, it was a good thing that I think I learned ultimately was being attached to having something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that my approach was quite egocentric. It was very self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, the people involved were very nice, beautiful experiences, but it was all about me. And I've experienced multiple times that when the emphasis is on self-absorption, self-centered kind of solely self-centered, because everything's a little bit self-centered. It's kind of the nature of being a human being, I think. But if it's entirely self-centered, it will cause suffering at some point.
Right.
And so I tend to even shy away from manifesting specific things now.
Okay.
I'm more like much more broad in my goals.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you give us an example? Like, would you say that you are more about manifesting feelings or manifesting outcomes? Or like, what is it like, how would you classify the change in how you manifest now?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm not looking for any particular thing. It's not like a thing. It's more like maybe feelings is closer to it. Like every day I do my practices that are leading me towards balance, that are leading me towards resilience, that are leading me towards um, peace,
Mhm.
that are, working on my business to bring more stability to not just my life, but to the lives of others. I don't care what that stability looks like or how peace looks or, how it's just so long as that they're there because it feels like they're important.
Mhm.
And, and I mean, I've been into Buddhism for a long time, and one of the main tenets of Mahayana Buddhism is to work for the benefit of all sentient beings. So I have this sort of in the back of my mind now that whatever I'm doing, it's about, everyone, everything,
Mhm.
rather than just about me.
Right. Like the water, what is it? Rising water raises all ships, something like that. Whatever that phrase is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know it, but it sounds good.
Well, no, because it's like you're talking about, if you want to manifest and it's just for you and it becomes egocentric and
Yeah.
very self-centered and self-focused, you benefit or you get something out of it. But it's like, well, what about the thing you manifested? What about that?
Mm,
What about the thing that you changed, right? It usually affects other people, but if it's just benefiting you at the cost or whatever of someone else, it's, is that good?
yes. Yeah.
But
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like the instances that kind of I could consider rock bottom or transformational, where when I accidentally hurt somebody in the crossfire,
yeah,
where someone got hurt or something just wasn't quite kosher.
right.
Yeah.
I love this idea that
Uh-huh.
because I recently went through a period where like I manifested the person, right?
Uh,
And the relationship didn't end up working out, but I'm kind of realizing just in talking with you that it was the same reason. It was like I had an attachment, and that became a very ego focused reason for me wanting to manifest. And I
mm,
didn't actually really think about, well, what does the other person want?
mm,
It's like we ended up having an attachment, a relationship, and I was happy, but this person wasn't necessarily happy. And it wasn't because I wasn't what this person wanted, but it was like things kind of change. That's all. Like just things change. Desires change or wants change, or you just kind of realize at the end of the day, oh, this isn't going to work out. Like we're not each other's person forever. And that's okay. But it's interesting that that's like a parallel because I bet that's not such a rare circumstance. I feel like it's probably a bit more common than we might think. Don't you
I
think?
think it's hugely, massively
Yeah.
common. One of the things that my mum introduced me to was The Secret, and bless her, I'm sure she thought that she was doing me a favor.
Mhm.
And actually, I sometimes wish I never came across that idea because because I was doing pretty well for myself. I was recording music and producing music, and I was just doing what I loved,
Mhm.
and I was enjoying playing with bands out. And I think I would have actually gained more success had I not become attached to this grand vision that I created for myself after watching, reading The Secret.
Mhm.
Imagine driving the Ferrari. So I was being a rock star before I was even, playing to 200 people. It's impractical in some ways, and then that's for me, my experience, I ended up denying my reality as it was
Mhm. In what way? In what way?
because I believe that's what you had to do in order
Uh,
to produce the results. There's somehow, rejecting. Okay, I'm not where I want to be, so I'm just like imagine that I am somehow, and uh, and I think ultimately it led to me rejecting um, stuff that was right in front of me that could have worked.
right.
I think I deviated a little bit from the point, but
No, it's okay. That's part of it. You did mention something earlier. You were saying that you have a certain daily practice. I wanted to talk about what it is that you do in a typical day.
okay. Well, I have commitments in my Buddhist practice that I need to do every day. And if I don't do them one day, I do it twice the next day. So it kind of has a rollover effect if I miss it. I won't disclose those too much because they're kind of specific. But then, as well as that, I practice qigong and
Mhm.
neigong.
Qigong and what?
Negong. Negong is the process of, well, Ne means internal and Gong means work.
Mhm.
So Qigong is a form of Negong. Uh,
It's like an umbrella term.
yeah, yeah. I suppose you could do Qigong without doing Negong.
Mhm.
You could do Tai Chi without doing Negong, but you could have Negong. You could practice Tai Chi and be doing Negong at the same time. It depends on how it's approached, because you could do it with just movements without the internal things happening. But once the internal things start happening, it becomes Negong.
Okay.
Yeah. So I practice Qigong and Tai Chi every morning.
And is Neigong like a mental set of exercises or thought processes?
It's maybe a way of so I mean they're sitting and standing practices, and they're about building chi and moving chi throughout the body, and it's amazing actually. I didn't know that it was possible to feel it like that. I only started doing the Neigong and Tai Chi recently for health reasons. It was always yoga beforehand. I train in Kriya Yoga. I've taken a pause for it for a little while. I'll come back to it later. But right now I'm focusing on building chi for my health.
Mhm.
And I studied with a guy called Damo Mitchell who lives in Bali right now. He has a podcast, which is very nice.
Mhm.
And I went with him for a month. I went to his school for a month, and I've been training with him online for a couple of years. And over time, there's just this sensation that's been building up in my dantian, in my kind of belly, and it starts tugging on the tissues as it gets stronger, and like my body's reshaping, and an interesting phenomena begins to happen
Mhm.
whilst practicing. And while I was there in the school, there was all kinds of weird things that were happening. My body was getting rashes, and the rashes were coming up and going expelling when I was doing like 4 or 5 hours of Negong every day. Just things that I would never expect to happen. So this has been a really, really good, not a health tool, but not just a health tool, because it requires having a certain state of mind in order to build chi,
Mhm.
which is also conducive to deepening meditation practice. So it's kind of improved my meditation practice, which is also something I do every day.
Mhm.
So Qigong, Neigong, the Buddhist practice, meditation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned Kriya Yoga. It's not something you're practicing currently.
Mhm.
What exactly is Kriya Yoga? Because I know Kriya means action, but it also refers to specific technique or exercise.
Yeah, usually refers to, it means kind of action. It can refer to spontaneous cleansing processes and things. But in the Kriya Yoga tradition, it is made famous by Paramhansa Yogananda. Um, and it's kind of a set of, there is a little bit of posture,
Mhm.
but not a lot. It's mostly seated meditation, and there's a very particular pranayama technique
Mhm.
that is used to. It works. It's kind of like a biohack that brings you into a state of meditation much more rapidly than you would go into otherwise. The reason I've stopped doing it for a while is because it brings all of your prana or chi up into the medulla oblongata, into the head. And I found that I just had too much activity going on there. I needed to bring it down.
Bring it down.
Yeah.
All of this is reminding me of Kundalini Yoga.
Mm.
I don't know. Have you practiced Kundalini before?
Yeah, I am not a big fan of it personally, but
It's so funny. I started practicing it recently, and
Mhm.
the feedback I get is universal. Everyone,
Right.
be careful.
Oh, really?
It's so dangerous.
Mm.
Find a teacher, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was like, all right, like I'm gonna take this seriously and take that advice on and kind of look for help and look for teachers. And what I ended up finding was a book by one of the disciples of Shivananda,
Mm.
and it actually talks about how it's a very common thing that people say is like, oh, you need to find a guru or you need to be
Yeah.
careful about it. And the response that he has or had was it's actually more dangerous not to start Kundalini practice than it is to like just start it and try to find a guru. So in other words, it's like there's kind of like different like levels, right? So it's like not doing Kundalini, doing it without a guru, and doing it with a guru. And basically, what they're saying is doing it even without a guru is still better than not doing it. It's like better than not doing it. But if you're not familiar, it's around taking the energy that's dormant. They say it's dormant, or at least it's never fully dormant because everything vibrates, but dormant in the base of the spine, and then eventually brings it up and raises it up to the third eye. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I would argue that most Kundalini techniques are not actually working with Kundalini, as it's a very advanced state to really awaken it. And instead they're using prana. And in most cases it's fine, but there are instances, and I've seen it a few times, where because of improper guidance, I think in the East, people were a lot more relaxed when they were learning this stuff and less intellectually orientated. And in the West, we kind of like to try really hard because working hard is doing something, and that's the way it should be. People can overdo it and cause like energetic imbalances, and sometimes get mental health problems and things if they're going too hard. So that's my like a little bit of my hesitation with some yoga practices.
Oh yeah. Like personally, I can identify with that, not from the Kundalini standpoint, but from the more physical aspect of yoga, because I have created imbalances physical in my body, tearing things and this, that, and the other, or just problems, physical problems. And it's from, like you said, that very Western attitude of, I'm just gonna keep going, I'm gonna try harder. And it's like we as Westerners don't understand that that is like a cultural phenomena that we have ingrained in us that we don't even realize, we don't see it. And it's like when I talk to friends who live in the United States and are kind of still in the system, we'll say, it's that same idea that we don't even see ourselves as we are because we are in the system. So it's like we're kind of blinded to the fact that we're just working and working and working and working and working, and that's all we kind of know. And so learning that other side of just like softening, right? Kind of to bring us into more balance is, I agree, it's like super important.
Yeah, it's a very deep one, and it's taken me a long time to realize that I equated being stressed with being productive, which is kind of weird when you think about it, because I'm actually much more productive when I'm not stressed.
Right.
I don't know. I can't actually speak for the Eastern mindset because I'm not Eastern. Though it just seems that there's been significantly more higher success rate in like Eastern practitioners, or maybe that's just because it's been in the East for a longer time. So yeah.
Oh, very cool. Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child. I have like step siblings that kind of married into both sides because my parents divorced when I was young.
Okay, cool. Yeah. When did like the step brothers and sisters come into play? At what age were you?
Oh, I don't know. I think my stepsister showed up at 7, and then on my dad's side, and then on my mum's side, it was later on. I'm not in contact with them in particular. We kind of live separate lives.
Yeah, everyone does their thing. Okay, cool. All right. Any other daily routines
Oh yeah.
that you like to follow?
Yeah. I mean, there's the food. The food is a huge part of things,
Oh yeah,
and that's been a massive journey for me.
right.
I was vegan for a while, and then that didn't go well.
Same,
Yeah.
same. I wouldn't say full vegan, but I was actually just vegetarian for almost 2 years until my body was like, bro, like enough, like we can't anymore with this. So talk about your experience.
Yeah, and I'm always hesitant to talk about it because vegans get really mad and they'll say I'm not vegan because vegan is like it's not a diet. It's I guess a way of engaging morally with the world. And yeah, I know, I get it. I and I'm kind of hesitant to talk about it because of that. But I found I practiced eating a ketogenic diet around the time that I broke up with that girl, that rock bottom moment. and I found that the anxiety, I had quite a lot of anxiety at the time because my life had fallen apart in my perception. I ended up moving in with a Zen Sangha, Zen group. So that was a nice place to live. But yeah, I was eating this keto diet and I found that I was more focused. I found that I had more energy. I found that my mood was better. And then later on, over the past year, over a year, I was eating carnivore for nearly a year just to see what would happen. I was curious and I felt amazing. And now now I'm back to keto. I've added things in again. I just wanted my body to find its equilibrium. And I think it did. And I think it's amazing because I've heard so many stories of people curing things and I've met people who've cured all kinds of things. And, uh, and I understand that you'll upset vegans talking about it, but
I mean, it is what it is. It's like this is. I used to teach a nutrition workshop in a yoga retreat center, and it was called like the vegan, like a vegan nutrition workshop.
uh,
But in that workshop, I said it there, and I'll say it here, and I'll say it every day. Everybody is different.
yeah,
Everybody. So it's like you have to kind of listen and observe what's going on because we can't just wait for science to tell us what's what. And even if you do, there's always the chance that you're going to listen and it's not going to work for you, right? So it's like
yeah,
you got to find what works for you.
yeah. That reminds me of like I also follow Chinese medicine as I say I kind of build my life around its principles, and I know what my particular imbalances are and how to kind of balance them out. So, like, eating meat is very heating. I have a hot constitution, so I have cool things. Like I'll drink peppermint tea, and I'll do stuff to cool my body down. And having a lot of limes and guacamole and stuff like this. But that's me. And people have different constitutions, so it's actually worth getting. I think it's worth seeing a good traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda practitioner who is able to kind of figure out what your constitution is and then give you like guidance about how to live or eat based on what you're most likely to come across in terms of imbalances and things like that. Yeah, and for me being like too stressed and let's go for it is detrimental to my health. And I end up getting like acne and I end up getting burnt out. So I have to learn how to slow down and it's all kinds of like things that are specific to me. It might be different for you.
Right.
Um, yeah.
And so you mentioned constitutions in TCM. I don't know much about traditional Chinese medicine and the constitutions. I know the Ayurvedic side.
Mm.
In Ayurveda, there's 3,
Mhm.
and you can be kind of like half one, half the other, right? And we're all a blend of all 3 anyway in Ayurveda. But
Right,
like,
right.
how does TCM work in terms of constitution?
Similar, they divides it into 5.
5
Yes.
different elements.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I Ayurveda does as well, but then it kind of further categorizes it into the doshas, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the doshas, the 3 doshas, they're always combinations.
Yes.
So pitta is water and fire,
Yeah.
and kapha is earth and water. So water is shared between pitta and kapha, and then vata is air and ether. Ether is like space or vacuum or soul or spirit. And so that's how the 3 play out in Ayurveda. What about TCM?
It's not quite as neat as Ayurveda in terms of, like I'm Vata Pitta or I'm Pitta Kapha or something, or I'm just mostly Vata or something. When each of the elements, and for some reason China does it differently than everywhere else in the world. And instead of having earth, wind, well, or earth, air, fire, water, space, it has, wood and metal and
Which I
yeah,
kind of like because we have metal in us. It
yeah.
makes sense. Like we even have gold.
Mm.
We all have a little bit of gold in us.
Very cool. That people in inner alchemy in Chinese, no external alchemy where you eat herbs or consume gold or even lead, mercury, things like that. In very specific ways. Don't do it. do it.
Don't do it, kids. Don't eat lead.
Don't do it without.
If you're in the United States, you're probably already getting lead through the systems. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, they have very particular ways of working with this thing, and you need to have a teacher that knows about it.
Is there anyone here in Vallarta who does TCM? Oh, Sean.
Sean, yeah,
Yeah, I want him on the podcast.
yeah, that would be interesting
Yeah.
to talk with him.
Oh yeah, he was doing the sun dance.
Yeah,
That might be over soon.
yeah, he's quite hardcore.
Oh yeah, we do the ice baths at Raices, and they would set whenever he wanted to do it, they would have to schedule him very specifically because he would go over the time every time, and so it's yeah, they would need to book out 2 appointments for him in order to have him get what he needed out of his ice bath.
Mm.
Whereas if I do more than 5 minutes, it's a miracle.
Mm. Oh, yeah. The 5 elements in TCM relate to the organs as well. So the specific organs that have specific processes. So for me, for example, my liver gets stressed, I get angry.
Yeah.
And that's hot. I get hot.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are ways that can calm my liver. There's certain herbs I can take, certain ways of eating to calm my liver. If we're starting to get more afraid, we might be having issue with the hearts, and so there are ways of dealing with that. But then they all interact with each other. So having this organ doing this thing and this organ doing this thing, there's going to be. It's very complex. It's hard to kind of speak about in a concise way.
Right.
And I'm still learning about it.
It's also individualistic too.
Yeah, it is.
Have you heard of tapping for liver stuff and anger?
Well, like the EFT type.
Or I've heard it from the sides of the body, especially from the trunk down, is apparently really good for liver and anger. I too have that. I have that was actually something I was just recently made aware of. It's oh, you have anger, and it's
no, I don't.
the classic angry response. No, yeah, but it's interesting because it's when at least for my personal story, when I think about where the anger comes from, I look at my parents and their relationship with anger, and then even beyond that, I look at my grandfather specifically on my father's side, and it's
yeah,
usually it makes sense when you can kind of go back a generation or two. You can start to see the patterns and how one person's anger led to your father's way of processing anger, which leads to you processing it in another way, and it's just different ways that intergenerational trauma moves its way down the lineage.
Yeah,
and how it manifests.
Ancestrally, in a Chinese medicine thing, there could be a wood imbalance in the line, and by healing your wood imbalance, in a sense, you're addressing the family line. It's an interesting idea.
No.
Yeah, there are Qigong practices for balancing the organs as well.
Cool.
For the heart, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys. Kidneys are very important. That's kind of our drive, our life force, and our vitality.
Okay.
Sexual vitality.
Glad we have two.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody.
No. I think, what do they say? It's the average number of kidneys is less than 2.
Yeah.
The average number of fingers and toes we have, it's less than 20. So, okay, very cool. All right. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a town called Workington in the northwest of England. Workington, yeah. It's like it sounds.
Exactly.
Very working class town.
Cool.
Ironically, it's got a lot of unemployment, I believe.
So high meth?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
No, we're not advanced enough for meth, I don't think. Just alcohol, probably.
Something. No, that's very United States though. Right now, it's
Yeah.
oh, you're from a manufacturing town in the United States, and they're not doing so well right now. Oh, you've got a lot of meth. It's that's what happens right now.
Actually, I don't want to diss it. It's not like it used to be. It used to be very, very full of drunk people on the weekends, but it's really not like that now. It's kind of quiet. Yeah.
It mellowed out. It chilled out.
It's mellowed out. It's also become there's this monoculture that's spreading across the world, and it used to be that they used to be what we call chavs.
Right.
Yeah, you heard of chavs?
Yep.
Yeah, council houses and violence. The kids with that dressing tracksuits
I
and
was gonna
things.
say tracksuits, Adidas.
And they would start fights, and I got beaten up a few times when I was younger. And now everyone's got like gelled, slick back hair and a well-groomed beard, and there are barber shops all over the place, and everybody looks very nice. And so I think it's kind of there's definitely an upside to having this kind of global culture.
Oh, it means culture.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Okay. No, what was I gonna say about that? It's like not hippie, but there's another term,
Hipster.
hipster.
Yeah,
Is that what it is now?
I think yeah, it's
Okay.
got more hipster
Right.
element to it.
So it was more working class before.
Yeah.
What was the industry or
Steel. It was steel, not anymore. They have a big nuclear plant close by, so a lot of people work in the nuclear plant.
cool?
Yeah, but I left when I was 18. I left, and then I haven't lived there since. I've just gone to visit occasionally. I lived in Bristol in the southwest of England for quite a long time. That's a very cool place.
Cool. Did you have family down there or you were off
No,
on your own?
I was off my own. I moved down with a girlfriend. We're still friends.
Mhm.
There was a street that I had a Buddhist Sangha that I lived with there, and then they also had a dojo where they'd practice on a street where there were three other Buddhist centers, which is really random in the United Kingdom. There was amazing stuff, and still is in Bristol. It was a very cool place.
I wonder if it was like one Buddhist center was there and like some of the students were like, here's good enough. Like
Yeah.
they didn't need to travel far to start their own little school or what have you. But I don't know, like different places geographically tend to attract a certain type of thing. Like I don't know if you feel this way about Vallarta, but like I feel like it attracts a lot of not only healers, but people looking to heal,
Mm.
right? Like I don't know if you find that as well. Like there's something about Vallarta. It has this like energy to it.
Well, I'm going to confess that I'm here because it's easier for me to get clients here. I used to live in San Cristobal, and it was easy for me to get clients there, but they don't have any money. So it wasn't very sustainable for me to live there.
Right.
And here we get all the tourists, and so I mean, practically it makes sense to be here. Vallarta isn't my favorite place in Mexico in terms of like aesthetics or something.
Yeah.
But I really like living here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the beach is lovely.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. I love the beach, but I agree with you in terms of the aesthetics. To me, it's like I always look for in a beach community a cafe on the sand, like somewhere
Yeah.
where you can like work and like put your laptop down, read a book, and kind of spend 3 hours kind of thing. And that's not the vibe here in Vallarta. They don't really. I think there's one cafe with an ocean view that I know of.
Right.
What's it called? I forget what it's called. La Cordoba, I think. La Cordoba. Anyway,
Mm.
okay. How long have you been in Vallarta?
Yeah, this will be. How long have I been in Vallarta? Over a year.
Okay,
Close to 2 years. Close to 2 years.
cool.
I know I do like it here. There's a really nice community, and there's a really like small community of the kind of healer types of people interested in healing or growth and whatever. And then there's like a completely different world out there. There's the Zona Romantica world, and then there's the Canadian party world. And
Yeah. The bar scene
the
with the
bar
Canadians
scene.
was like such a thing.
Yeah.
It's such a vibe. Like they're out there drinking at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday, on a Wednesday. They're retired. They've got their Canadian dollar. They're like happy as
Yeah, margaritas for breakfast.
oh my gosh, at margaritas.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so you said you were in San Cristobal before.
Yeah.
Is that this coast, West Coast?
Yeah, it's West Coast. It's not on the coast. It's in the mountains, but it's in Chiapas, right? Close to Guatemala.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very cool place.
Mhm.
Uh,
How long were you there?
I was there. I got 7 months. Chris and I met there.
Oh, nice.
No, we didn't meet there. We met in Tulum, but we lived in the same house there.
In San Cristobal. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very cool place though for people who are healing. I think it's a very cool place. People who are like on a particular stage of their healing journey.
Right.
because there's a lot of community and a lot of support, and I think that is the beauty of the place. It was a very meaningful time for me living there. It just turned out to not really be sustainable for me and how I wanted to grow and share what I'm sharing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you need people. You need community.
Yeah.
You need clients. You need people like moving in and out, moving through.
Yes, yes. And I like a little bit of bougie.
Bougie?
Yeah, I like a bit of bougie. I like rustic, but I like bougie. I like to be able to switch between the two.
Right. The luxury,
Yeah.
the La Comer, the
Yeah.
Costco, the
Occasionally I end up on a nice boat and,
okay, okay. Yacht life.
yeah, things like that, which is, I don't own a boat. And I don't think I'd ever own a boat if I
I never say never.
ever
Not
say
yet.
I
Not
don't,
yet.
yeah, you never know. Yeah, I don't understand when people purchase big yachts, but that's not for me to understand. I'm happy that they've got the big yachts.
Yeah.
They invite me on them. That's cool.
That's the best thing. It's like you don't want to own a boat, you want to be friends with the people who own the boat. That way you
Yeah.
don't have to you don't have to deal with anything, maintenance and all that jazz and cleaning. And I was actually, so before I bought my house in Boston, I was having this kind of crisis moment of like, do I buy a house? Do I buy an RV? Or do I buy a houseboat? Like, what do I do? And when I was looking into that, I found out that the way houseboats work with the math is whatever amount of money you spend on the boat itself, you want to be spending about a quarter of that every year on maintenance and cleaning.
Yeah.
And that made the decision really easy. I was like,
Yeah, easy.
Nope.
Yeah.
don't want to do that. That's a bit much. And then where were you
It's a
before?
real commitment. Yeah.
Where were you before San Cristobal?
I was in England. No, I was in Panama for a while. I was in Panama for a while working in like yoga retreat places.
Cool.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
And then I thought I had a year visa,
Ah.
but they gave me a 6-month visa. And then when I tried to leave, they said that I can't come back unless I pay a fine. And I didn't pay the fine, so now I can't go back to Panama.
Okay, you're
So,
not invited
so
back now.
Panama, if you watch this, just let me come back.
Panama, help a brother out.
I liked it there, and I thought they said yes when I said
I'll make sure Panama is a listener of this podcast. I'll
Yeah.
shout them out on Facebook or something. At Panama. Please let Bradley back in. What was nice about Panama?
I love the Caribbean. We were in Bocas del Toro, and I love the white sand beaches and the turquoise clear waters. It was very like atypical paradise kind of scene. I really liked living there. And there was the jungle as well. So we had like toucans and howler monkeys. It's a very cool experience.
No luxury there though.
Oh, there was a bit of both. It was like next door to each other. It was very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of people would move in with a lot of money, buy up land, and then turn something to something fancy. But there was also a lot of just wooden houses.
Between.
Yeah.
Nice house, jungle, nice house,
Yeah.
shack.
And I would like live in a wooden house and work in a nice place.
So you got the best of both
I
worlds.
got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really liked living there actually.
Back to the question of daily routine, but I want to change the word daily out and talk about, are there routines are there routines that you have that are like less typical? Like every month you do this, or every 3 months you make sure you do that.
That's a good question. Well, I ensure that I play music out with people, or I do kirtan, or I share kirtan. And that's a very nice practice to share with people. And I'm less inclined to do it by myself. I really like it as a collective experience. And you have the harmonium, so I'm sure.
Please, let's do kirtan. I
Yeah.
miss kirtan. When I first moved to Vallarta, there was a man, Raul, living here, and he had kirtans Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so I went to kirtan Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Wow.
I went 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But I just moved here, like I didn't really know anybody, and I was just like, and I don't drink, you know what I mean? So like I don't go out to the bars, and that wasn't really my scene. And I'm like, well, how do I find my people? How do I do things. And so that was such a beautiful, soft landing for me, for de Vallarta. And so then he moved to San Sebastián del Oeste, and it was like, oh,
I know.
there goes my thing.
Yeah. He's back quite a bit. I used to host the kirtan every Friday. Yeah, I'd love to have a frequent one again. For me, it's a really beautiful practice because I love playing music. Music is one of those things I don't necessarily do it every day, just because there's only so much time in a day to practice.
Yep.
And like I'm doing the qigong, and like my health is a greater priority than my music right now.
Yes.
And also like recording and producing music is something that I will do progressively throughout the month.
For yourself, for
For
other people.
myself, other people. I've been making like meditation tracks recently, but I like writing songs. I have an album, Cosmic Soup was my band. And Bradley La, also available on Spotify.
Bradley La on Spotify.
Yeah, LA.
LA. And you're a one-man band, or you collaborated?
I Yeah, what's on Spotify is mostly collaboration, but yeah, I like collaborating. It's much more fun, and so music is an ongoing thing. I trained in Nada yoga when I was in India. Time that I met that girl, uh, and so that was like Nada yoga being the yoga of music and sound. So it included studying Indian classical music and kirtan. And I had a sitar teacher. And
Where was this?
this was in Rishikesh in India.
Okay. How long were you in India?
I think in total I've been there over a year. Yeah, you were in India for a long time.
I lived there for 3 years,
Yeah.
and I was on that visa where you have to leave every 6 months.
Hmm.
And I loved that, but also hated that. It's like I loved that I got the excuse to have to leave the country. So I would just visit a bunch of countries nearby. Like I'd fly out to Nepal and Sri Lanka and Vietnam, Thailand one time. And so it's like I got to see a bunch of stuff. But part of my desire to move to Mexico was it's like, where can I go and not have to leave? And so I got my residency here so that I don't have to leave. I can just stay.
Right,
And
right.
that was huge. But like if there was a way for me to be in India full time, no problem.
You know,
Love that.
what is it about India that would keep you there if you could do it more easily?
I think it's that it is such a different culture and such a different money system that the concepts of time and money stretched in such a unique way that's unlike any other country on earth.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm smiling
I
'cause
think,
I understand what you mean, but
yeah,
it sounds really like esoteric when but it's I know what you mean.
but it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
I remember, I think I did the math on it. I survived one
yeah.
year in India on 2000 US dollars. And this was in 2017, so like the world is very, very different now with the money system.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd be able to do it for that little, but I don't think it would be that much more. I don't think I would have to spend that much more money than 2000 a year just to live. And so it's like I with that amount of money being spent, I had everything I needed. But
Yeah.
like I mentioned, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't, partying, and I don't shop
Yeah.
for things. I'm not that materialistic. Well, a little bit, but like not that much.
Yeah.
So, but what about you? Like similar, like you agree like the time and space changes?
Yeah, well, there's multiple things that I think are very attractive about India,
Mhm.
and it's partially that some of the unattractive things are attractive about India. Like it's so stressful in some instances that it requires being relaxed,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you kind of learn to be relaxed in like stressful situations, which is like very useful actually. It's kind of a culture shock at first, but then it gets easier. And then, like you said about money, it goes further. And I could get clients really easily when I
Okay.
was there.
Were they foreign clients or
Yeah,
local clients?
bit of both, bit of both.
Cool.
Like people in India are very open to mind related stuff,
Right.
and I mean, I get people on social media from India quite often that like contact me and they're interested in the things that I do. And people in India are very open to a lot of stuff. I feel. a lot of stuff that maybe people in Western countries might be more conservative about, and then they're more conservative about stuff that people in the West might be more open about. So,
Well, like sex.
yeah, like sex.
Yeah, they're not a very sexually liberal
Uh,
country, at least when I was there.
mm,
Um, it was very closed off, very like, no, sex is between, husband and wife, and you have to wait, and et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
It's an interesting place. So like you're bringing up the mind stuff now. I want to transition and talk about what led you to working with the mind.
Mm. Well, I mentioned that kind of when I was kind of overloading on different spiritual practices. And I was exploring some qigong. Then I was exploring kind of yoga practices. I was doing like extreme detoxes.
Hmm.
I was studying Kabbalah, and and that was probably the thing that set me over the edge because I didn't realize that there's a kind of a form of Kabbalah that's called practical Kabbalah, which is a little bit like it's into like magic, but I didn't really know that that was the case at that time,
Hmm.
and some of the words can be used to create changes. And I was doing it as a kind of experiment because I've done mantras, and mantras, nice. It's nice to work with them. But these things, this really worked. And so that was a little bit scary to realize that actually. And I have since established that it requires a certain maturity to be approaching these things.
Okay. I'm
Um,
just recently learning more about, you're pronouncing it Kabbalah? Is that right?
Kabbalah, yeah.
Kabbalah. I'm just learning about it because it's, related to the tree of life.
Yes.
And when you look at the tree of life, there's different Sephiroth
Yeah.
and there's different paths, and there's 22 of them, 22 different paths that
Okay.
connect all the Sephiroth. And the tree of life is really just an allegory for the hero's journey or a life path, right? It's like you start off as a fool, which isn't, it doesn't mean you're stupid, but it means someone who is a bit ignorant because of age or experience or whatever. And then you end up with, I forget what the last part of Kabbalah is, but you're essentially like God?
Right. Yeah. So what you're referencing is a particular form of Kabbalah, which would be called Hermetic Kabbalah,
Ooh.
which incorporates things like the tarot, and it talks about the paths, the 22 paths. And in Hebrew Kabbalah, they do include the Sephirah. But the tarot is not really part of it, and this Hermetic uses it more of a syncretic tool for understanding a lot of things. So does the Hebrew, but less so. It doesn't incorporate as many different frameworks.
Right.
So, like Keter at the top, the Sephir at the top of the Tree of Life is kind of the unknowable God. And then we go down the Tree of Life, it splits into kind of severity and mercy, which is, like the male and female aspects. And then it becomes furthermore manifest into the 10th Sephira, which is Malkut. And Malkut is it's the beast, the being, the world.
Okay.
So, like, if we could say that God, in the Hebrew Kabbalah, the idea is that God is entirely generous and giving and kind, and just gives and gives and gives and gives and gives, and it's the nature. But in order for God to give, there needs to be a receiver, and the receiver is the creature. So when I said earlier how I think we're kind of egocentric by nature, that's in the Kabbalah I would say that we are the desire to receive, and that is why. Uh, that's the wanting is just part of our nature. The idea, though, is that in order to become like the Creator, we must learn how to use our receiving in order to give. And then that brings us to more happiness, more fulfillment, which aligns with Buddhism, which is, ultimately we're doing things for the benefit of others. It's a kind of map of a pathway
Right.
towards, I don't know, I don't want to use the word enlightenment, but I'm going to say it for the sake of clarity. Enlightenment.
I feel like enlightenment just means awareness, like awareness of nature, the nature of whatever it is that you're talking about, the nature of God or the nature of reality or the nature of existence or The other interesting thing that I pulled out of this description of Kabbalah is how receiving is seen as a good thing. Desire
Mm,
and attachment, in a way, is almost seen, I don't want to say good, I don't want to put such a label on it, but
mm.
it's necessary.
Yeah, it's you can't. It's unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's just gonna happen regardless of whether. Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It doesn't sort of demonize receiving. The kind of issue that we become faced with is the desire to receive for the self alone,
Mm,
which is the kind of like an enemy, but it's just the way we are until we have some form of awakening.
right. Well,
Uh,
this is what narcissism is, right?
yeah.
Like, and narcissism is such a popular term right now and concept, and it's kind of everywhere. But really, if you boil it down, I would frame it or phrase it differently. I would call narcissism self-preservation,
Mm.
survival,
Yeah, it
right?
is, isn't it? At its core, it's just that. Yeah.
That's all it is. It's someone who is a narcissist, right? If you put the clinical term to it, if they fit the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder,
Yeah.
ultimately what this person is extremely selfish. They're just
Yes.
extremely aware and concerned about their own needs
Yeah.
to the detriment of everybody else. At the end of the day, it's to the detriment of themselves too, but they're just trying to get, and receive, receive, receive because they were put into that position, like from their upbringing or trauma or whatever it is that causes narcissism and NPD, narcissistic personality disorder.
Isn't that terrible though, to be in a position where it's you against everyone else?
Exactly. Instead of in a community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of
It's zero sum.
uh,
For me to win, you have to lose. And it's like,
mm, yeah.
or we can
Oh
be a
yeah,
community,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Oh, it's a very weird thing. I want to go back because you asked how I got into the mind, and then I kind of deviated into the Kabbalah side of things. But then when I realized that these shifts were happening, I realized that I could engage with the mind in a different way because my unconscious mind had just opened up to me. So I began to see all my unconscious content, and then I was pretty good at hypnotherapy right from the beginning. Um,
As the receiver
as
of
a
the.
practicer,
Okay.
I really got into. I mean, I tell people this story a lot that I was teaching a music module in a university, and I was really nervous when I was public speaking, and somebody commented on the fact that I was nervous and called me the nervous guy, or referred to me to somebody else as the nervous guy. So I tried like hypnosis to be better at public speaking, and then I found it worked.
Mhm.
I think the way that I use my body language when I'm public speaking now, like this, came from that
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was like, wow, this is amazing. Uh, and so I started learning it very quickly. And from the beginning of practicing, I started practicing it very, very early on. And I found that I was getting results.
Mhm.
People who had like phobias for their whole life were ending. And this was like nearly 15 years ago. Um, and so I just kept taking clients. And then I found that whatever I learned through my meditation practice, or through studying Buddhism, or practicing Qigong Tai Chi, or through studying Kabbalah, or through my studies in psychology, or anything that I'd learned, I would use hypnotherapy as a kind of vessel for sharing the wisdom that I gathered about nutrition as well,
Right.
and how to form habits, how to form useful routines, and break habits.
Mhm.
So hypnotherapy has been like my vehicle for everything I've learned. This is why I like to say mind transformation tools, the name of my business, because it is a set of mind transformation tools. Hypnotherapy or hypnosis is maybe the way that I deliver the tools often,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's not the only tool.
No, yeah. I mean, you're right. It's like at the end of the day, when people are getting hypnotized, it's to change a habit,
Yeah,
right? So it's like the hypnotism, like you said, it's the vehicle, but what you're trying to get across to the client is a change of habit that results in an exercise routine or a
Mhm.
diet change or, stopping a negative habit or an addiction or, what have you.
Oh, like I'm noticing maybe like they're having a relationship problem, and then in hypnosis, I can help them. I might not even say it directly because I can use language that leads them to come up to their own conclusions, and that's a big part of Ericksonian hypnotherapy. You speak in a way that's quite vague and mysterious, and the client will make sense about everything. And I could say something that helps the client realize, actually, I've been a bit narcissistic in this area in my relationship, and now I should be more generous, or something like that. We can help. This is how like different modalities can find their way, sneak their way in, and become healing ultimately.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, is autosuggestion a way of phrasing it where it's like
Yeah.
you're kind of letting the client fill in the gap, right? It's
Mm.
like you don't need to say necessarily a solution. You're kind of just presenting and framing the setup, and then the client fills in what is the problem, what is the solution, what is, everything. They're kind of putting it in there.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Based on what the client tells me, this is kind of how my process works. Based on what my client gives me,
Mhm.
I will I'll hear things and I'll notice patterns. That's what I'm looking for. I'm asking questions and I'm noticing patterns.
Mhm.
And there'll be certain patterns that I notice come up, and then I'll find a situation that I remember or a story that illustrates it, a fable, a myth, or something, and then I might tell this story or something that happened to me, something that happened to a friend, something that happened to Hercules. I don't know. And I'll tell this story as a way of illustrating this pattern that I noticed, and then their unconscious mind is going to make the metaphor of that story relevant to their experience,
Mhm.
possibly in a way that I didn't expect or intend it to be. And oftentimes people will give me feedback, and the thing that was most impactful for them wasn't the thing that I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I was going, like, I had a question queued in my head for you,
Yeah.
which was, what do you think about self-hypnosis?
Ah.
But in a way, I feel like you answered it already because you, as the person driving the hypnotism or the hypnosis session, are noticing patterns. And with that, you're able to kind of pivot and change and guide the client towards a proper path.
Mm.
I don't think that can happen as easily, or maybe even at all, I don't know, in like a self hypnosis session, right?
Yeah, I think self hypnosis is very useful for some things.
Mm-hmm.
I use it. I don't use it like in a very formal way. I don't like sit and minute and relax my muscles and count down from 10 to 0 and imagine going down a staircase and all this stuff. But I do use like if there's something that I want to accomplish, or if I'm going to give a talk or something, I will rehearse it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I even use hypnotic techniques if I find like something I had a memory that was too intense come up. I can use patterns that I would use for my clients to stop it from being too intense. Though there are certain things that it's not really possible to do. Well, it is possible to do by yourself. I shouldn't say it's not really, but having somebody intervene is much more helpful. I think in terms of like trauma, in terms of addictions, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like minute habits or how you're building certain things into your life. I think we do it. We do self hypnotize when some guy wants to get jacked. He's like thinking about being jacked and imagining his muscles being big, and he's looking in the mirror and he's like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna get even bigger." And he's hypnotizing himself to keep going to the gym and we hypnotize ourselves in negative ways. They're like, "Oh, I'm so fat," and then like looking at and then we're creating this mental image that we're fat, and then we're hypnotizing ourselves to continue down this road.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to deny the reality, because I don't want to say, like if you like I'm jacked and you're fat, it's not gonna help. But you can use it as a starting point. It's like, oh, I can see that I'm a lot more overweight than I'd like to be. Uh, and so, like, I can see that. what can I do about it? So rather than obsessing over the problem, you're seeing what's happening, and then you're like, okay, well, I can take these steps. So rather than, like denying reality and saying I'm jacked and the most attractive person in the room or something, it's like, well, I can modify my diet. So let's concentrate on that, and then let's concentrate on that. Let's concentrate on that. I think I don't think we're taught how to use our mind, and I think that's
Agree.
an interesting thing.
100%. 100% agree. It's like the systems that are in place in society are not designed to benefit you as an individual at all. It's really designed to have you be a part of a bigger system that, yes, maybe arguably benefits everybody, right? Like you can make that claim about society, but you and your needs and desires and wants are kind of put on the back burner
Yes,
in order to get you to become just a cog in the machine.
yes. And this thing like like having a mental image about where you want to go. We're not really taught like that in a sense that we're not taught that that affects us, that impacts our physiology, and that impacts the choices that we'll make. Um, that certain thought patterns are actually like detrimental to our progress, and that it's possible to change those thought patterns and to think differently. We're not really taught we're maybe taught how to read information and cross-reference information, or how to do mathematics, or whatever, how to paint a picture, but uh, how to harness one's mind to, yeah, it's not really common knowledge. I think it's getting there. Mindfulness is in schools, and that's something.
They're putting it in like little trickles, right? Like I've heard of schools using meditation sessions as a replacement for detention,
No,
which I don't know if detention is like a universally known phrase. It's like punishment, essentially.
yeah,
And instead, some schools are using meditation sessions and finding amazing results. And it's like, well,
yeah.
of course, if you can sit down with yourself and be with your thoughts and observe them and not judge them, and you learn that skill, yeah, you're going to see improvement in people, for sure. You mentioned you have a meditation practice. Is it a certain style? Is it like transcendental? Is it Vipassana? Is it you're Buddhist as well, so
I've done both of those, transcendental and Vipassana. I guess, I mean, for me now, Vipassana is the way that I approach meditation rather than a meditation itself. If one does a Vipassana retreat, there's the Goenka or wherever you're learning from, you have that particular technique that they call Vipassana, but really the Vipassana is maintaining the equanimity while you're doing the practice. Or it means insight, right? You're having insight into the nature of your mind. I guess my main practice, meditation practice, I do some Tibetan Buddhist practice, but the main practice is just to rest the mind, just to rest it for as long as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not focusing on my breath. I'm not doing anything really. And it took me a long time. Like I feel like I'm just beginning to practice meditation, right, after 15 years, because there was always this little something in my mind that was like, well, maybe this will make it better, or maybe this will enhance it, maybe this will speed things up, maybe this will, and it's trying to again deny reality, modify the experience somehow, twist it, make it something other than what it is. Whereas actually, my meditation practice is to be with reality,
be in the moment,
yeah,
right? Instead of trying to change it or wish it was a different way or guide it somewhere, right? It's just, okay, observe, just be.
Yeah. I know there's always going to be time to change stuff, but like I used to, I don't know why I do that in my meditation practice. I was sitting in the Zen dojo with all the, for a long time, sitting, staring at a wall. And then I'm like, oh, imagining, I don't know, whatever. I remember sitting there one time and like, what if up was down and down was up? And I was just kind of playing with my perception like that, but that was not the practice. The practice is to stop modifying things. And that's very hard to do. But then, outside of the practice, of course, you've got to modify things. You've got to wash the dishes and make plans.
Live about the world,
Yeah.
this physical reality we call the world. Okay, very cool.
Useful to know how to stop doing that though, sometimes.
Agree. I'm also on this journey recently of more trying to accept rather than change, more trying to just be. And I think they call it woo, like the woo way,
Oh
right?
yes.
Kind of like a more middle path.
Non-governing. That's how Damo Mitchell kind of translates it.
Non-governing?
Non-governing. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is what it is, right? It's like not trying to change it, not trying to judge it, not trying to wish it to be anything other than what it is,
Mm.
right? Or just also just understanding that like sometimes not intervening is the best intervention. Like just like letting it, right? Like not making a decision, not taking action is the best action. That's the future. That's the course. That's the way. But we're not really programmed like that in the West. I think I don't know. Like I'm from the U.S. I'm not from England.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a different culture. Very similar, but a
Yeah,
little.
Boston, so there's a working class element, I think, is a big
Hey.
part in yeah. Um, or I've just got Goodwill Hunting going through my head. I'm just
Is that a
imagining that it's MIT as well. I've got in the movie, and that's like pretty up there, prestigious.
Is Good Will Hunting a Christmas movie? I feel like there's one part that's Christmas.
There is, you're right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's December when we're recording this, so this episode will be coming out in I think late January,
Oh, okay.
February. So we've got some time.
What were you talking about then? I just wanted to
Back to like Wu Wei and meditation.
the way.
You also mentioned TCM. How is that different than Vipassana? Vipassana, it's like mantra based, right? Or like
Oh, you mean the transcendental message?
yeah.
TM.
Oh, TM. I
Yeah,
said TCM.
yeah. It's a mantra-based thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you hold the mantra quietly in your mind, and I think that's very useful it was useful for me when I learned it. I don't practice it because I just find it's not aligned with where I am currently. A lot of people swear by it. I think everybody needs to find a tool that resonates with them and the one that they want to do. I think that is important.
It's like also too the one that they will do.
Yeah, the one that they will do.
The one that they will do. Because consistency is everything. I'm seeing that in my like in my universe lately. Like the concept of consistency keeps coming up over and over and over again, and there's definitely something to it.
Yeah. I'm going and I'm bashing that one around a lot these days just to keep going, being consistent. People come for a session. Sometimes people immediately like book out like 10 sessions. It's amazing.
Oh,
I love that because then we can work over time. And then some people come for one session and then it works for a while and then they don't come back for another session and then it stops working and then I'm like, oh yeah, if we just kept going, it worked for a while, it can keep working. And I think we have this mentality, and I think it's partly to do with I sometimes blame like consumerism, consumer capitalism, this idea that something will just fix something. We even have this in the kind of Western allopathic medicine model that somehow, I mean, it doesn't work for chronic conditions. It will work if you break your leg, you can get your leg fixed. But yeah, we have this idea. Okay, I can take a drug and it will fix my problems, but it won't. It will create more problems. So it's what can you do over time with consistency, with focus, with discipline. I think that's really, really important. And with plant medicines, people expect that to heal all their problems. And again, it's one of those things. It might do something for a short while, and then they have a fight with their partner, and they have a breakdown on the bus or something. It doesn't it doesn't solve the problem. It might give you insight, but if you don't implement that insight,
integration is the most like anyone who talks about plant medicine, it's like my brain immediately is like, I don't want to talk about plant medicine. I want to talk about integration after, like
yeah.
because that's the most important part, and it's the most difficult, and it's the least sexy. Like the
Yeah.
plant medicine is sexy.
Yeah, yeah, it is, it is.
Oh, I'm gonna see colors. Oh, I'm gonna vomit. Oh, I'm gonna have a really
Sexy vomit.
like that's what it is. That's what it is.
You're
People
right, you're right.
love that. We
Right.
love that. We love taking hallucinogens and having those experiences, but none of us love integrating what it is that we learned in those sessions. We don't love that we learn, okay, I learned that I need to exercise. Okay, but now the integration is actually exercising. It's like
Yes.
that's not sexy. So you also mentioned allopathic medicine. What does that term mean? I've actually never heard it.
I'm thinking in terms of like Western medicine, what we call like, pharmaceuticals or what you generally get in the hospitals and
Right. Yeah.
MD offices and
Okay. That's allopathic. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a bit, I mean, I'm so, so, so interested to see what's going to happen in the United States with this new political, I don't want to get too political, but like, you know, I feel like there's going to be changes in terms of what medicine looks like as well as food. And I'm hoping to see some changes there because I don't think what's happening in the United States is working. And be it as it may, the United States is a bit of a beacon in terms of what happens throughout the rest of the world. It's like
Yeah.
whatever happens in the US is a system that distributes outward. So it's super important.
Very
It's
influential, right?
very influential. And so I
Yeah.
want to see change there. I want to see improvement.
Mm.
So I'm excited. I'm excited for the
Do
future.
you have anything that gives you that kind of hope? Or,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think I don't have hope in a current in an administration or a particular person.
right.
I think what I most have hope for is the fact that like even this project of a podcast, it's like it's leading to conversations that are not the same conversations we had before.
Mm.
Before it's, oh, I have a health challenge, let
Yes.
me go to a doctor.
Yes.
And now I feel like
Andrew Huberman talking about whatever, like nuanced scientific thing, and then people on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I don't know. I mean, am I on track? Am I
you are right though. I mean,
Yeah.
and those kind of have a bit of a bad connotation in my mind because
Right.
it's not necessarily fully science-based. It's not necessarily fully tested,
Okay.
but at the same time, it is leading to conversation.
Yes.
And that is what I feel like is the most, or experimentation.
Yeah.
Experimentation. And that I feel like is more important. I feel like as society, as individuals, we should be, I shouldn't should, but I'm going to, we should be seeing ourselves as a science experiment. We should be seeing ourselves as living, breathing, changing things.
Yeah.
And we should be questioning more all of the information that we are being bombarded with, right? So whether it is the health services, institutions in your country, or whether it is the podcast you're listening to, or the video you saw on YouTube, or the TikTok that you saw, I want to see us as individuals looking at all information with more of a science, how to say it, more filters, right? I
Yeah.
want to see us filtering out information going, okay, but is this actually true?
Yes.
Whoever's saying it,
Mhm.
myself included.
Yeah. Discernment, I think, is yeah. That's something that I'm concerned about
Hmm.
because I think it's good that I found so much useful stuff from the internet.
Hmm.
Like some stuff that probably I wouldn't have found without it. Uh, Stuff that would have been previously like hidden, and I would have had to travel to like mountains in Asia and found some, graying bearded old man.
Yeah, no hair here
Yeah,
on the top of the head, but all of it here,
yeah,
and orange robes. Yeah, exactly.
and and so that's amazing. But then we have the problem where everybody's selling something.
Hmm.
And then there are certain things we were talking about before. You were talking about that show about cooking.
Oh yeah, so I was mentioning before we were recording, one of my favorite YouTube channels is called How to Cook That by Anne Reardon, and she has a whole segment of videos where she just debunks all of the BS recipes that are out there on social media that look really cool, but if you follow the steps as shown, it will not give you the result that they show. But they do that because they know it works, because it's controversial. And so it's like people watching the video, we know intuitively, we're like, that's not gonna work. That's not how
Yeah.
if it was that easy, we would all be cooking like that. But no, it doesn't, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And then that's the problem because it is disinformation being presented as not disinformation.
Right.
I saw a video on TikTok yesterday where a girl was saying that how she got loads of followers on TikTok, and she says, "Oh, you press if I watch all the videos to the end, and then I comment on people's videos, and I sometimes I play it like a double speed, and by pressing down on the screen for 2 seconds."
Mm-hmm.
And then it says press down the screen for 2 seconds to speed it up. And if you press down the screen for 2 seconds, it reposts. So she just basically deceives people into reposting her TikTok video. And so I'm thinking like this is happening on minuscule levels. And I've noticed, like in myself, I was advertising and I was saying I've seen panic attacks end in 1 second, in one session, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen phobias end in one session, and I have seen that, and I'm sort of straying away from saying it that directly now because I want to emphasize more like actually in reality, it might be more common that people have to apply themselves to what it is that they're looking for.
Results
So
may,
I'm even
results
putting
may
through
vary.
my own bullshit. Yeah, I'm like, but it's tricky, isn't it? Because then it's becoming harder to discern what's real and what's not, and with AI, that's just adding another layer to it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think we navigate that?
Discernment, right? It all comes back to understanding that often there is something being sold, right? Often there is a different agenda, and so there needs to be an understanding of that there's a new currency out there, and it's called attention,
Yes.
because it's the only thing we actually have is our
Mm.
attention and our time. It's not yes, it's money and it's all these other things, but it's like those things you can re-up, but attention and time, not really. You get the moment and then the moment's gone. So and we only have so many in our life, so what we pay attention to is super important. And also understanding that all of these platforms that are out there are being designed with just the smartest people out there, right? And their whole job is to get you to stay on that platform consuming for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Because your eyeballs and your time scrolling through is money to them. It's advertising dollars, it's more chances of you buying something which they get a cut of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yes. Yeah, and slowly, everyone opted into it, and now it's almost.
it's
You can get by still without having a phone, without having the internet, but it's very challenging, I think.
Yeah.
If you want to be in society in a regular way.
It all comes back to what your, how to phrase it, like what your values are and what you're looking for, right? Because I spent about 10 years staying off of social media. And the only reason I wanted to start this project and get back on social media is because I'm kind of like, all right, this thing isn't going away, and I've tried ignoring it. that it, and now what I'm trying to do is like, how about I just use it for the way I want to use it? I don't want to use it the way they want me to use it. I want to use it the way I want to use it, and I want to have a message that I think is important rather than just seeing social media being filled with all these other messages. That's my personal
Mm.
way of dealing with it.
Yeah, it's a great tool in a way. I mean, it's almost if there aren't people that do that choose to share important information, then the people who are on social media are just going to be receiving bombardments of stuff,
Right.
superficial stuff.
Right.
So yeah, is it a necessary evil? I don't know. This is a question I've been asking myself
Is social media necessary?
Is the social media a necessary evil? Particularly for me and where I'm at in my stage of life, and where I'm at with my business and everything. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting and nuanced thing.
It is. Well, I know a woman who has a very spiritual practice and gets in front of her altar every morning and has the same prayer, which is, Universe, thank you for sending me my clients,
Yeah.
and does not use social media.
Oh, really?
And she has her clients. And so I don't know how, that's kind of part of manifesting, but that's something that she believes, and it's something that she does, and it's something that is working for her. So I think there's a way of doing it. Um, but I also feel like social media allows you to do, if it works, if you do it right, it allows you to do the most good. Like I talked about that show, How to Cook That. Her views are in the millions. Her videos are very well done, high value, and what she's doing is she's actually helping people understand how to discern,
Yeah.
understand how things are fake online.
Yeah.
And she has even found certain things that like go viral online that are dangerous. And she's like, hey, don't do this because like 30 people have died doing it. Like it's like have you heard of this thing where it's like you get a piece of wood and you connect it with two electrical conduits on both ends, and what ends up happening is once you make the connection and turn the electricity on, it starts burning. Exactly. It burns a path through it, and it's like, oh cool, that looks so cool. Well, it turns out that if you touch the wood or the tip of the electrical thing, it's like you will literally die. It's such a strong electrical current that's required that
Yes.
that people die.
Wow.
And so her video was basically like, yeah, hey, this is trending, don't do it.
Yeah.
And so that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good use of social media.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's the
It's like it's almost a social media combating some social media.
exactly. Social media versus social media.
In the red corner, we have social media in the blue. Uh, I mean, I think I probably discovered like the keto diet through internet stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that I've gained from social media or YouTube in particular, I would say, that has been really, really useful. And I love YouTube actually. There's a bunch of podcasts that I love listening to, and yeah,
I like YouTube out of social media more than most. Reddit as well. Reddit and YouTube I like the best.
yeah,
I think another challenge with social media is just the anonymity. Like as soon as you put an obfuscation between an individual and how they are appearing in a public forum, as soon as you kind of hide that line and you use like, here's my profile image and here's my username, it's like you can fake all that, right? And so the feedback loop, the negative feedback goes away. If I say something to you face to face and it's offensive and you don't like it, you can be like, hey, stop, it's awful.
yeah,
Or punch me, like whatever it is, like you can there can be a feedback loop because it's not anonymous.
yeah.
As soon as you add the anonymity that happens with online, I think all that goes away, and then the discourse just blows up. It's not there.
That's the thing that scares me, especially like in the 2020 and the whole COVID thing, and then the people on the line online were fighting each other. Now, for me, that was the worst part was this division thing. Facebook's like that all the time. Like anytime I put something out there, when I put music out there, people would just be really horrible. Like you get more negative comments than positive comments if it was like if it was viral or something. A lot of the time you get a lot of negative comments. And I think that's because people who are just uptight and stressed are more likely to say something. So you're getting a warped view of things. And it's true. I often like sometimes I'm more likely to reply to something if I'm like annoyed by it or disagree with it, which is a weird thing.
That's what goes viral.
Yeah.
Controversial or sexy or wrong. There's a quote that goes like, the quickest way to get an answer online is to put the wrong information about what it is you're trying to learn about,
Wow.
Yeah, like if you see something that's red and you'd be like, oh, that's a beautiful shade of blue. It's like, like you're gonna get all the, it's red, no, it's magenta, no, it's
Yeah,
that's when you're gonna get the actual response,
Yeah.
controversial. I wanted to touch as well on something you said. You said that when you put something out there, a song, and you get negative feedback, right? Another quote I heard recently is people who have something negative to say aren't the ones creating. They're the
Yeah.
one, it's never someone who is a creator.
Yes.
It's never someone doing something. It's always someone just kind of criticizing. That's the only thing that they contribute is criticism rather than creation. So,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it could be true. It seems like it's true in many cases.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Same with the hypnotherapy. People give me a lot of stick on that. Often the people that people say is magical thinking, it's bullshit, all kinds of messages like that.
Yeah.
I made a post recently saying, "Look, here's 150 peer-reviewed journals and experiments that prove the efficacy of hypnotherapy." But
And someone had something bad to say about a scientific
no, that one they didn't. But I posted that one because people are like claiming that what I'm sharing is strictly woo-woo, and it does have that. It has its like past life progression, uh, higher self type manifestations, but it also has its clinical version. So anyway, I just, I just noticed that people, anytime you put something out there, someone will want to kind of cut you down. I'm not sure why that is. As soon as you're in the public eye, it's you're a target.
I think that's why I stopped posting on social media for 10 years, if I'm honest. It was that I had this burning desire in me to share because I've had so many beautiful personal experiences through my own healing journey. And it's like I learned so much. And it's like, well, what do you do with that information? You share it, right? Because it helped me. I want to help others. But I knew with the internet the way it is, as soon as I start putting it out there, I'm gonna get comments. And at least for me personally, what I decided was I guess I just don't care because I'm expecting it and I know it's going to happen. And what are my options? Continue hiding and not sharing, or put it out there and make maybe one person benefit from this? And it's like, okay, if I can do that, if I can make one person benefit, I think that'll make up more for than compared to the 10 people who had something negative to say, right? So, what was the most shocking positive result you've had from a client that you've worked with in hypnotism?
I don't know the most shocking. I mean, I would say in the early stages when I was just starting out, when I had somebody overcome a phobia, like on one of my first sessions, and it went away. That was very shocking. Um, and then I had a client early on that was there's like a very small percentage of people who we kind of call them somnambulists in the hypnotherapy world, which is like somnambulism is actually sleepwalking, but in this context, it means that they're very, very suggestible. And so, like, I will get someone to, usually I'll have some kind of situation in their mind, and I can say, "You stand up," and then they would literally stand up because they were so responsive to suggestion. Wow. And so, yeah, there's some people that get so deeply into trance, and they're so deeply suggestible that they will respond to suggestion like just very, very dramatically, it can be said, and also that taught me to be careful about the language that I use.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yes, and I don't know. I guess anytime somebody overcomes anxiety, it's amazing. It's beautiful. And when people let go of their fears, when people step forward. I saw some guy, a client I had was making, because, well, one client uh, wanted another job, and somehow we did a session, and my session was more about her looking for and being available for jobs. And then she just ended up getting like promoted in her work, which was really bizarre. And she thought it was because of the hypnotherapy, and I'm like, I don't know. And I had this other client who wanted to expand his business, and as a creative person, and then I did some stuff to help him work on the context, because creativity is more valuable in specific contexts, and that really worked. And then he ended up having his work displayed in different bigger galleries. So that was really cool. I want to say, oh, the most remarkable one was psoriasis.
Whoa.
Psoriasis healing. That was very remarkable. I didn't expect it to work.
It's an autoimmune disease, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's the body attacking itself, and that is the mind. I mean, everything is the mind.
Yeah.
Hermetic principle number one.
Yeah, right.
Everything is mental.
All is mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was very, very, very cool. And so, I'd love to work with more people who have physical issues that they want to work with. Um, when I've reduced someone's pain, that's amazing. I would say the psoriasis was the most unexpected one.
What was the time between the session and a result in the physical?
Well, in the session, I did something called ideomotor signaling to get some answers from the body as to how long the healing would take. And I think, I don't remember exactly the time. Let's say the body said it was 3 weeks. And 3 weeks later, it healed. And it was, yeah, very, very, very cool.
I love this. I love this so much because I'm not super familiar with hypnotism. I know we had our one session and that was amazing. You're amazing. And I'm definitely very, very much more interested. What would you say is the number one thing people come to you with for hypnotism? What one problem comes up the most?
Self-esteem issues.
Self-esteem.
Yeah.
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem. Yeah, I think that's pretty much at the core. That's not what people come saying that they want to deal with, but it's the seems to be the main thread between most of the issues that people come with.
The root.
Yeah, and also an attachment to the problem.
Okay.
Like someone has anxiety and they become just so identified with being depressed or being anxious that that they've decided that that's who they are. Almost that's who they want to be, but they're not quite admitting that they've chosen to be that person.
It's a victim mindset.
Yeah, yeah, that's really common with anxiety, with depression, with addictions. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense if someone's coming and they want to step into, even if they want to step into a new habit, they have their reasons why they're justifying not doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes sense. So that's why they're coming, because they have somehow created a story that is supporting their inability to do whatever it is.
Right.
I think it's happening with the anxiety and with depression. They've somehow supported the story that is going on. Which reminds me that one of the reasons that I dedicated my time more to practicing hypnotherapy was I did a vision quest in probably 2017. And no food, no water for 4 days, praying, and at the time all I experienced was just like really heavy cloud of depression when I was there. And this sort of thought came to me, or feeling, or whatever it was, like a prayer. I don't want anybody to feel like this. So that was almost a decision that it's important for me to work it out and to help other people work it out, because I really don't want anyone. It's horrible to feel that. I say low, but it's not even low. It's like disconnected.
Disconnected.
Yeah, it's not existing. It's existing. It's not living.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've recently started changing my mindset around depression and seeing it as a beautiful thing, because it is telling you in such a strong way that something's not right. You know, it's like pointing out with such clear evidence that something's got to give.
Yeah.
You've got to do something. You've got to change something. And that's ultimately what it is. Like another this is a bit another tangent.
Mhm.
Another message I keep getting in my universe over and over and over again is like there are so many people out there telling you what to do with good intention, right? But it's like we all can't get up at 4 a.m. and do an ice bath and then make our espresso and then do an hour and a half of yoga and then do 4 hours of meditation. And it's like there's not enough time in the day. And not all of us want to do all that, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Or can even. Not all of us can.
not all of us can. It's like, yeah, I can't sit for 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
But these are all just ideas. And that's kind of how I'm approaching, how I'm changing what I'm bringing to the universe is it's like I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I'm kind of over that judgmental phase of my life. Like I definitely had it, and I still maybe to a certain degree have it a little bit, but I'm aware of it. And now I'm like, okay, now we're just talking about ideas, and it's about options
Yeah.
for what to do. And so I agree with you. Like depression is so awful, and no one should go through it. And if you are, God, my heart goes out to you and I feel for you. And it's like, I've been there and I know what that's like. And it's like, it's a huge sign. It's like, take it as a huge sign from the universe and just stop judging it. At least that's what helped me get out of depression is getting to a point of like, wait, let me get out of my judgment phase on my own depression and actually just get into an observation phase. Like, okay, let me sit with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like stop numbing it, stop avoiding it, stop judging it, but be aware of it and actually see what is it trying to teach me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, I mean, something I've been harping on a lot about recently is conscience and how, for some reason, I feel like conscience is not talked about anymore. Like listening to your conscience.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed at a retreat a couple of years ago that sometimes I felt anxious or depressed when I wasn't listening to my conscience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like avoiding listening to it. Like, hey, that was a shitty thing to do, or you're not doing something that you should be doing. And I'd be like, no, 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 and I push it away, and then I feel more anxious or depressed, and that conscience was actually a useful message, you know, and then actually like listening to it and responding to it is builds self-esteem. And I'm like, oh wow, I actually feel like more mature because I listened to that. So that's one thing that I'm like, why does no one talk about conscience anymore? In this world of spirituality, it's very like, okay, what do you want? What do you want out of life? But like, what about like, yeah, are you being a good person? Are you in alignment with what you really value deep down?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other things with the depression as well, which you know, so stopping and listening is one way of discovering what that is. But then it can also be, and I don't want to say like exclusively because these things often, I think they are always happening on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you could be neglecting to listen to your conscience and consequently neglecting to eat well because you're trying to push the conscience away. So you're eating shitty and then your body's going out of whack. So maybe, you know, you could address the conscience or you could address the eating. But, you know, it's like whatever angle you want to look at it will support the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be a spiritual thing like you're in the wrong place or you're I don't know. Maybe that aligns with conscience. Yeah, and so sometimes it's like grief or something that has not been resolved or processed. Or,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a very kind of big subject.
I love this concept of consciousness, not consciousness, but conscience.
Yeah.
How would you define conscience? Like, I'm thinking in my head, there's kind of two different paths. There's like morals,
Yeah.
values,
Oh yeah, this is a difficult subject.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then the other way of thinking about conscience is intuition.
Yes.
I feel like maybe that to me is more how you're thinking about it, right? Conscience is what is your intuition telling you is right? Because to me, morals and values has like an overtone of like society, what society tells
Yeah.
you is right, and then you're gonna get in trouble with that.
Yeah, I think when I say I mean a little bit of both.
Hmm.
I wouldn't completely cast out the kind of the societally accepted morality,
Hmm.
because we have to live in society, or we don't. But if we do, then then it's worth adhering to some of the principles so as to keep things peaceful and amicable. So I understand why there's a shared morality. We might not necessarily agree with it, and also we need to know when to break those moral conventions for the greater good.
Hmm.
Like if lying to somebody would do them more good than harm. If I told them the truth and it was very harmful to them, then maybe it'd be better to lie to them. For example. But I think with the intuition, I think that is probably more like 70% of what I'm. Or it's like, am I like this? There's a feeling of whether uh, I am I'm being helpful or I'm being harmful, or something to that effect.
Right. I think in terms of society, it's important to define the morals and values as maybe golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated,
Yeah.
and nothing more. It's just that easy, right? It's that easy. And I
Yeah.
agree. I think I think about this a lot too. Like you made the joke that like, oh, maybe you don't have to live in society, haha. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, but that's true.
That
Some
is true.
people do that. They
Yeah.
literally go into a cave and renunciate, and all that.
And we could if we wanted to, but
Yeah. What are your
we
thoughts
chose
on
not
that?
to. Well, Chris has some space where we could live if we wanted to.
Where?
Down south.
South in Mexico?
Yeah, in Mexico. Yeah.
What do you mean? She has land?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's very abundant and lots of fruits and vegetables. Lots growing there.
Oh yeah.
There's fresh water.
Cool.
It's livable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but we've chosen to not do it. There, it's available. It's a possibility, and in some ways, a sensible one. It's
Yeah.
to not get caught up in the rat race, or to just be with nature. I think that's very healthy and sane, actually, in many
Mhm.
ways. Uh, the issue is that a lot of people who are drawn to those situations tend to be societal outcasts.
Mhm.
So you'll find yourself coming across eccentric people, egotistical people in a lot of situations. This happens again and again in beautiful, beautiful communities around the world.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like
Oh yeah.
clashes.
Oh, some of the most frustrating experiences I've had have been with people in like ashrams
Yeah,
and settings like that. But to me, it's like I always say yoga, for example, attracts the type of people who really, really need it. And so that's what's beautiful. But it's like at the same time, you have to know that going in. It's like, okay, if I'm going to enter this world of yoga, I'm going to come across people who had some really tough upbringings or a lot of mental challenges or whatever
yeah,
that is, right?
yes, yes, yes.
It's the world. So, what do you think is in your future in terms of your journey in the world of hypnotism?
Well, I suppose for me, hypnotherapy is like at the moment it's my vehicle for sharing what I want to share
Hmm.
with everyone. Um, I think it's part of a bigger mission that I want to be able to share ways of using the mind,
Hmm.
uh, ways of healing the body and mind. And hypnotherapy is my in, but it's not just about hypnotherapy. There's a holistic component. There's the diet component. There's exercises. There's whatever. And I'm not there to share the specific diet, the specific exercise, but just the how do you actually do that?
Hmm.
How do you make changes?
Hmm.
And how do you get your unconscious mind on board? And I would love to share this at a bigger level to like even people that are professionals in mental health, professionals in different areas, because I think it's important that they learn this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And when it comes down to it, really what I want to share is what I've learned from my spiritual practices,
Mhm.
which is that, well, if we go to Buddhism, um, attachment, craving, and rejecting causes so much of suffering
Right.
or dissatisfaction.
Mhm.
And if I can share that message that, it's possible to not buy into them so viscerally and have a happier life. Uh, and if I can do that on as big a scale as possible, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'd like to play more music. That's,
What I love about music is that it's just so universal. Like I have this kind of core memory of my niece dancing at a very young age, like less than 2 years old.
mm,
And it's like, oh my gosh, music is so integral to the human experience.
yeah.
And like if you look at cave drawings, there are cave drawings of themselves dancing around a fire. And so even that, it's like, calories were so rare and valuable back then that people didn't waste anything
Mm,
and they didn't waste their energy, and
mm,
yet they knew instinctively that they needed to come together as a tribe and like dance around the fire. Like it's like that,
yeah.
it's that integral to our experience as humans, music and dancing and movement and
Mm,
community.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, music's. I heard someone say that like music transcends religion. Even it brings people together regardless of what they believe in. Uh, and it's amazing in that sense.
Totally. Or like
Yeah,
think about some of the best singers in the world.
yeah,
A lot of them had their roots in the church.
yeah.
A church, not necessarily the church, but like some sort of religious way of practicing their music,
Mm.
you know?
I love that. I love it when music is, and that's it. Traditionally, either the music was used to tell stories in like indigenous cultures,
Hmm.
or in like ancient civilizations, or India. Music is used to tell stories, or it's used as a devotional tool.
Hmm.
And I think that those are very beautiful. And nowadays, it's like a lot of things. Oftentimes, it's what sells.
Mm.
And so, for example, sex sells. So our songs are about sex in lots of colorful different ways. So it sells, and um, controversial things sell. I remember thinking Eminem was amazing when I was a kid, and when I listen back, I'm like, whoa, that's the messages I was receiving when I was a kid. And actually, I mean, he's an amazing lyricist, like very, very skillful in the way that he writes, but it's not what I would listen to anymore.
The subject matter, the
Yeah,
controversy. Well,
yeah,
like you said, it's like it's what is he going to rap about? Things that sell. So it's
yeah,
violence,
yeah.
it's sex, misogyny, womanizing, money.
Uh-huh.
Those are the things that you want to rap about. Those are the things people want to listen to in a certain age.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly did. This is a lot of gangster rap.
You don't make rap music though. What kind of music do you?
I do sometimes. I
Oh,
have, yeah.
I want to hear your rap music.
It's very, I don't know, white spiritual person rap music.
Hipster.
I like writing rhymes. I'm pretty good at it. Uh, yeah, but it's sort of a weird. It's like almost a counter stream to this like mind transformation to us doing like. Yeah, I make meditation music and like kirtan and songs, and then I have this kind of hip hop stream that is over here somewhere.
But you said it was spiritual hip hop, right?
Yeah, so that I can't really take it away from my. It's just a big part of my experience, I suppose. Whatever we call spirituality. Yeah, I've been writing lyrics recently about actually like more dark themes like poverty and. I don't know. I guess I've been contemplating like issues that have been going on in the world and then writing stories about, that kind of
Right.
Yeah,
It's an interesting theme, especially I feel like right here, right now in Mexico,
yeah.
like where we are in Vallarta, I've seen rents triple in the last
Uh,
4 years. Now it's almost like 4x what they used to be.
yeah.
And I'm actually starting to see it happening in other cities, and I'm starting to see it in social media. And it's like, oh my gosh, like it's not just Vallarta, and it's not just the United States, it's not just Mexico. It's like everyone is kind of getting this like crunch and this pinch around what's going on with money. Money is such a weird, funny topic.
Yeah.
Again, it's something that comes out of the United States, right? Like we're on this fiat currency, Federal Reserve System, funny money, Bitcoin. Like, what is this? Like, what do we do? Like, inflation and the monetary policy that came about after the pandemic. All of these things are kind of creating this weird perfect storm right now, right at the same time as we're entering this like age of Aquarius, right? Like Pluto is kind of transitioning to the next sign of the zodiac, and they say that we're entering this. What do they call the age of Aquarius? It's like this.
Mm.
I, I don't know how to frame or phrase what exactly it is, but it's like a more enlightened phase. Like we're all starting to kind of like wake up and become more conscious and understanding. And I do feel like because money is such a powerful thing that runs our lives, I feel like that's going to be changing in the next
Yeah.
20 years, it might be gradual, but it's happening.
It's really the foundation of like much of societies around the world now. Money,
Hmm.
for better or worse. I mean, it has its perks, but yeah, in like a lot of places, there's a lot of people struggling,
Hmm.
and then we've seen that kind of filtration of wealth from like the billionaires becoming even greater billionaires, but it's also like an opt-in situation. Like the money's been given to them. People are buying things. People are
Oh, consumerism.
receiving the information, and
Mhm.
they believe the information, and then
The statistic I
yeah,
heard is that just in general, consumerism and shopping is 70% of the US economy.
wow,
So it's like frivolous stuff. It's like you don't need that stuff.
yeah.
You don't need so many more clothes. It's like if you've got a few pairs of clothes, you're fine. You're good for years and years and years. But we don't think like that. We've got Shein and Temu and fast fashion and things like that.
Mm.
And yeah.
I don't say I really like stuff, but like I don't want to. I don't want to like. I like and money. Is very useful. I guess my if at all I have a beef, the beef is with like disingenuity, like falseness, this kind of trickery that's involved with selling things.
Hmm.
I don't like that.
Hmm.
I like honesty, and I feel like it's almost become a societally accepted thing to be dishonest,
Hmm.
and that's not okay. That's not okay.
I know. Well, it's just weird too because we are like I see a lot of things online that are like, oh, Black Friday special on this software. It's $47. You're saving $1,000 because the value is $1,050, and you're
Yeah.
like, where is this coming from? Like where, like this is what you're talking about in terms of dishonesty. How can you say that? How can you say its value is this? It's just a made up thing. It's just a made up number at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then I suppose any price is also.
Price. I'm
Uh,
I'm reading Influence. I forget the author's name, but I'm reading Influence right now.
I have a book influence.
It's just so good. Have you read it?
I
Have you
haven't
read it
read
yet?
it. I found it on the side of a street in Toronto, so that's why.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
That's a sign. No, yeah. So the one of the stories he says is that a friend called the author and was like, I have a story for you. You're gonna love this. This person had a Native American jewelry store and had
Mhm.
a bunch of beautiful, authentic Native American turquoise jewelry, silver collection.
Mm.
And the proprietor was having a really hard time selling it. And so she was like, all right, well, I'll talk to my customers about it. And so she started like, hey, what do you think about this? And da-da-da, didn't sell one.
Mm.
Then she goes, all right, I'll have my salespeople, I'll increase their commission, 50% if they sell an item from this collection. It still didn't work. Then she was leaving on vacation, told an associate, hey, price it at half off. And she wrote it down on paper, price at half off. The one got kind of like water on it or something, and the employee thought it said double the price. So instead of 50% off, she doubled the price. Guess what happened? It all sold out. Why? Value.
Yeah.
People thought, well, if it's this much money, it must be really, really worth it. So none of the other tactics and things worked, but doubling the price of something made it actually sell. How crazy is that?
Well, that is quite interesting. And I do wonder about like the dishonesty with that, because it's not dishonest in a sense that it's as dishonest as any price. And saying that it's worth this is also it's just a made up kind of a fabricated like idea. Um yeah,
But that's our psychology,
yeah,
right?
I know.
Our psychology around money is really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also so individualistic too.
Mm.
There was another story in the book that I loved of a man who went to a jeweler and wanted to buy a really nice piece for his girlfriend, and this person was friends with the owner of the store, and so the owner of the store was like, okay, I've got the greatest thing. You're gonna love it. She's gonna love it. Normally it's $500, but I'll give it to you for 250. And they went, oh, well, what else you got? And it was like, oh, okay. So then they found another item, and it was normally 500, and he said, well, I'm not going to discount it this time. I'm just going to offer it as the price. Okay, well, I've got this other piece. It's similar. Here it is. It's $500. Oh, great. Right away wanted to buy it. And then said, all right, well, since you're my friend, I'll give it to you for 250. And he goes, okay. So it's exactly the same circumstance, right? They were both items for $500 and they were both discounted to 250. But the change in the story, that slight difference of changing the price at the end after the decision versus before, made all the difference in the world. And it's just the psychology around money is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find this interesting that I'm working on being more direct about it for a while. I mean, I give people my price and they'd be like, well, that's too much. So, and then some people are like, fine.
Yeah.
And it's completely, it's completely arbitrary. And I offer, I mean, I have a kind of sliding scale depending on who I'm talking to and what the situation is. There's an interesting thing with pricing, and that's what people will pay for the same price as a session that could, like, genuinely help them in some way. They'll buy, I don't know, a bunch of junk from Amazon that they don't want.
And that doesn't actually change anything in their lives. Yeah.
That doesn't change anything in their lives.
Well, basically, the price of something is the value it gives you. And so if a session with you can lead to change that, like you said, one person got a promotion at work.
Yeah.
How much is that worth?
Yeah.
10 grand? More per year for the rest of your life, right? So it's like, that's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of about how you market and position your services. Maybe you could have different tiers of hypnotistic offerings, right? So it's like, hey, hypnotism around habits is this much, but hypnotism around money is this. And yeah.
Yeah. As it goes at the moment, I'm kind of, this is another thing. Hypnotherapy is very, very broad and it can address so many different things. One of the things that people say and I even tell my students this, is that if you pick a niche, you're more likely to get repeat clients, or you're more likely to get following more quickly.
Totally.
If you're the expert in psoriasis, if you're the expert in depression, you're an expert in quitting smoking. And Alan Carr built his whole career on helping people quit smoking.
Is that right? Oh, Alan Carr, not Jimmy Carr.
Not Jimmy Carr. There's also a comedian called Alan Carr in the UK, but a different Alan Carr.
Did we talk about this, like my obsession with British comedy shows recently?
No.
A few years ago, when I was about 2 years into my time here in Vallarta, I just got obsessed with 9 out of 10 cats
Yeah, 8 out of 10 cats.
Eight, whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, 8 out of 10 cats, and then they have 8 out of 10 cats does countdown.
All right.
Oh, I loved that. So that's like a crossover. And then Jimmy Carr has that show where it's like a bunch of celebrity panels.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I love
What's it
those.
called? Yeah, I know what you mean.
I forget the name of it, but anyway, yeah, I just got obsessed with British comedy. It's so different than US comedy. It's so different. I love it. So, okay. Let's wrap it up. I want you to have like a final message for the listeners, the Omis of the show. What would be your final message to people?
Yeah, a lot of times we get stuck in certain habits, certain routines, certain ways of living, and we want to step into another stage, another level. And whether that is like a chronic health condition, and that's a big thing. A lot of people have chronic health issues now, and they could be mental or physical. Chronic fatigue is like all over the place, and we don't know what it is. Like medically speaking, we don't know what it is. But people do recover from it. I recovered from it, which is another story.
Mhm.
And there are ways to change your situation. Not every situation can be changed, but we need to learn to know which situations we can change and which ones we can't. And you won't know unless you start. And so, in order to start, well, you need to see what you can do now. What steps can you take? Is your mind resisting moving forward? Maybe you need to change something in your mind, in your unconscious mind. Is your health bad? Do you need to change your diet? Like, what steps can you do now? Like, focus on what you can do now. Uh, your goal can get bigger as you go along. You don't need to if you're in the depths of despair and depression, you're not going to be imagining being like the most loved person dancing and smiling. And that's probably a bad example because a lot of depressed people are the most loved person dancing and smiling. But the point is that jumping too far ahead is not necessarily useful. You focus on what you can do now, and then the goalposts can move with that. We are a process. We're never going to finish. Uh, we'll die, but then who knows? Maybe we still will carry on. And the process of regaining balance and learning and growing is continually happening. So you don't need to have this big goal that's going to save everything. Just do that one thing now. Focus on what's important now. What do you really need to change now? And then action that and make that your priority. And if you need help, well, then people like me are available. And my website is mindtransformationtools.com. And that's important to just notice what you can do now. And I don't know why, uh, we're told that we should have these big dreams, and I get that. I get that it has its virtue, but what you can do now is much more important. Each step. A lot of people don't see the. I mean, look, you had the expression, "You can't see the forest for the trees." Um, I like to say you can't see the trees for the forest because there's this amazing vision, but they don't know which step to take. So there's a forest is made up of one tree, and then there's another tree, and then there's another tree. So each step will take you wherever you want to go, and your goals will grow, and they will change, and that's fine. And that's good. If you have this big goal, maybe that big goal is compensating for something that you lack right now. And if you fulfill that, let's say you want inner peace and you're imagining having $1 billion will give you inner peace, and then you get $1 billion and actually you're more stressed than you were before. Perhaps finding the inner peace will change that goal. You'll realize, oh, actually, I could get something else instead. So instead of compensating by jumping too far in the future, look at now. Look what you can do now. And that's it. I think I
Bradley, thank you.
thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, I am Tristan, and this is the How We Are Healing podcast. And so, as always, I want to end the podcast by saying, please heal yourself so we can turn around and help heal others.
Hello, I'm Tristan. I was just like you. I wanted to become a yoga teacher. I noticed all the positive changes it brought to my life. I didn't want to have to travel, though, to do a yoga teacher training and all that goes along with that, right? Being put in a room with a bunch of strangers. What if I had to use the bathroom and I have to miss part of the lecture and dealing with that awkwardness? I also didn't want to have to spend a fortune. And let's be real, yoga teacher trainings can be very expensive. Lastly, I wanted to be able to start teaching yoga right away because, if I'm honest, I felt ready before I was even certified. It's just what happens when you find something that really speaks to your soul and when you have that focus and when you have that discipline. For me, the program I wanted didn't exist, but now it does. I created it. I created the yoga teacher training that I dreamed of. It's a course that's affordable at just $99 a month. You can even finish everything within the first 30 days if you're super dedicated. But there's no pressure. Go at your own pace, it's there. Because of this also, you can start earning money right away. I give you the tools you need so that you can start earning. That means the course immediately starts paying for itself. Just in case that's not enough, there is also a 30-day money-back guarantee. I wanted to make it so that you have nothing to lose, an entire lifetime of yoga knowledge to gain. So what are you waiting for? Get started today. Go to shantiyogaschool.com to access the course now. That's SHANTI yogaschool.com. Hey, it's Tristan again. Thanks for tuning in to How We Are Healing. I hope you found it meaningful. If you'd like to support the podcast, consider leaving a review or sending this episode to friends and family. Until next time, Omis, keep shining.